Good morning. Welcome to Let's Talk About Us. It's me, Zach. Today, we are covering a pretty big story. This is definitely going to be on the Let's Talk About Us YouTube channel in full. This is probably going to take at least 30 plus minutes to do a full deep dive on. But I am going to post at least the first 10 minutes of the video here, so make sure you watch that in full, and then click over to the YouTube channel and drop a like and a subscribe if you want. This article is from BBC. BBC has an overall center rating, although Media Bias Fact Check does give it a lean left. And all of the factual rating people give it a high factuality rating. It is owned by the government. It's a British news organization. TikTok to begin appeal against being sold or banned in the US. Written by Lily Jamali, a technology correspondent for the BBC News. TikTok will start making its case on Monday against a law that will see it banned in the US unless Chinese owner ByteDance sells the social media app within 9 months. The measure, signed into law by President Biden in April, has been prompted by concerns that US users' data is vulnerable to exploitation by China's government. TikTok and ByteDance have always denied links to the Chinese authorities and have described the law an extraordinary intrusion on free speech rights. Which it is. It is very much a major violation of your right to free speech. The firm, which claims to have more than 170 million US users, will make its arguments before a 3-judge panel at an appeals court in Washington, D.C. Company representatives will be joined by 8 TikTok creators, including a Texas rancher and a Tennessee baker, who say they rely on the platform to market their products and make a living. And I have stuff for each of those individuals mentioned. We'll get into that at the end of this BBC article. Lawyers from the Department of Justice will then proceed to lay out their case. In addition to data concerns, DOJ officials and lawmakers have expressed alarm at the prospect of TikTok being used by the Chinese government to spread propaganda to Americans. However, advocates of America's powerful free speech rights enshrined in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution say upholding the divest or ban law would be a gift to authoritarian regimes everywhere. Right? Because if the country that is, purports itself to be the freest in the world is doing shit like this, not a good look, man. Not a good look. We shouldn't be surprised if repressive governments the world over cite this precedent to justify new restrictions on their own citizens' right to access information, ideas, and media from abroad, said Jiangnong Wang, a staff attorney at Columbia University's Knight First Amendment Institute. It has filed an amicus brief, which is a legal document submitted by someone not a party to the case but with an interest in it, offering information or expertise, usually with the hope of influencing the outcome. Mr. Wang also criticized lawmakers for being vague about the specific national security threats that they say TikTok poses. We can't think of any previous instance in which such a broad restriction on First Amendment rights was found to be constitutional on the basis of evidence that wasn't disclosed. Yeah, it's the trust me bro evidence that the US government's trying to use, and we'll talk about that later too. But according to James Lewis of the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, the law was drafted to withstand judicial scrutiny. The substance of the case against TikTok is very strong, Mr. Lewis said. The key point is whether the court accepts that requiring divestiture does not regulate speech. Mr. Lewis added that the courts usually defer to the president on national security matters. Regardless of how the appeals court rules, most experts agree the case could drag on for months, if not longer. Nothing will get resolved next week, said Mike Proul, vice president and research director at analysis with firm Forrester. Forrester is a big, think tank type company. You can look them up. They're pretty open about who they are. They have a whole website. This is a high stakes and very complicated conundrum that will likely go all the way to the Supreme Court. That's the end of the BBC article. And as I said earlier, we have 2 things that are connected to that. This is about the Texas rancher Texas rancher sues U.S. government over law banning TikTok. Brian Firebaugh, the owner of 4F Ranch near Waco, has banded together with a group of 7 other TikTok influencers to sue the federal government over a new law that would force the sale of the app or lead to its ban in the U.S. Silence ad. The law signed by President Joe Biden on April 24th gives TikTok's owner ByteDance until January 19th, 2025 to sell the app visited by about 150 million U.S. users monthly, driven by concerns from U.S. lawmakers that China could access data on Americans or spy on them through the app. The 4-year battle over TikTok is part of an ongoing conflict over the internet and technology between the US and China. The 8 creators filed the lawsuit Tuesday, arguing that the law violates the user's First Amendment rights to free speech. TikTok itself also filed a lawsuit last week. Although they come from different places, professions, walks of life, and political persuasions, they are united in their view that TikTok provides them a unique and irreplaceable means to express themselves and form community, said the lawsuit. Among the diverse content creators named in the lawsuit is Firebaugh, a Texas Marine Corps veteran who sells ranch products and is known as the Cattle Guy on TikTok. Firebaugh says that until he started posting videos on the app in 2020, his business struggled to get off the ground. He has since quit his full-time job, living off of income he has made off of TikTok. Look at this man. You know what? I'm gonna follow this guy. There's probably stuff I don't agree with him on, but you know what? He looks fun. He looks like he's a lot of fun to watch. Now he has over 500,000 followers. Together, the 8 parties have millions of TikTok followers. The lawsuit says the creators rely on TikTok to express themselves, learn, advocate for causes, share opinions, create communities, and even making a living. Firebaugh, 44, says that's true. He's 44 years... Hey, TikTok's for everybody, okay? TikTok's for everybody. The online community that he says he's built with ranchers, not only... What? So wait, you're telling me this guy got on here, and then other ranchers got, like... There's a rancher TikTok? That's amazing. I love that. The online community that he says he's built with ranchers not only allowed him to participate in a Netflix reality show, but the funds from that show allowed him and his wife to afford to adopt their son. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. 100% of our customers come from TikTok, Firebaugh said. For that to go away, you're now stealing money out of my family's mouths. Together, the creators are requesting that the court declare the law unconstitutional and issue an order preventing U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland from enforcing it. Okay. And then the other person that this BBC article mentioned is a local Tennessee baker. Local baker worries about possible TikTok ban. Germantown, Tennessee. With a possible TikTok ban looming, one Memphis business owner says her livelihood could be in jeopardy. Chloe Sexton, owner of the Germantown bakery Bluff Cakes, has gained a substantial following since joining the app in 2021. I never would have come to where I am today if I didn't have the resources of TikTok, Sexton said. After losing her job prior to opening Bluff Cakes, Sexton began posting short clips on the popular app under the username Chloe Bluff Cakes. I love that. In just 3 years, Sexton and her business have grown a large fan base, getting over 2 million followers and 80 million likes on her posts. Holy shit. All that support has helped her to generate more money for the bakery and her life. We have a location in Memphis. We have shipped in all 50 states and every area in Canada, Sexton said. We do celebrity custom orders. It has turned our world upside down in a good way. Okay. So with the app possibly being banned, Sexton said it will severely impact her business. Sure, there's Instagram Reels and there's Facebook, but they're not as powerful. They're really not. Anyone who's like, well, you can do YouTube Shorts or fucking Instagram Reels or whatever. No, sorry, they're not even close to what TikTok does. Said, in no world you would immediately get a billboard for free that 2 million people are going to see, but you have that with TikTok. To take that from small businesses would be incredibly devastating, not just on a personal level for people like me, but on an economic level. TikTok has changed the way people make money, the way people work for themselves, or change their careers in an instant. A bill to ban TikTok passed the House of Representatives last week. Congress created the bill because they claim they are worried about China having too much information on Americans. In order for TikTok to avoid a US ban, its Chinese-based parent company ByteDance would have to relinquish ownership according to the new bill. In response to the House of Representatives, TikTok CEO Shou Chew denied Congress's claims and said that the anger towards the app is misplaced. As somebody who is constantly fighting an uphill battle with 3 kids and small business and life getting increasingly more expensive, yeah, I would definitely say there are a million things they could focus their energy to, Chew said. If you are so concerned about safety, this is not the way to go about it at all. Better educate yourself on how the app works and better educate yourself on how much good it's doing. The bill is currently on its way to the Senate where it's expected to pass. President Joe Biden has said he would sign the bill if it makes its way onto the desk. No surprise there. I'm gonna give my opinion on all this at the end of this video, but there's a lot I gotta say. What I'll say right now, though, is with these 2 articles, with the BBC article and whatnot, and these 2 articles going into the rancher and the baker, is this not the American dream? Is this not like someone going for it and succeeding and, like, you know, bringing massive amounts of wealth to their family and, like, changing their life? Like, what I am reading to you right now and describing to you right now is literally the American dream. And yet you have a bunch of politicians, including Biden, who are just trying to do away with it because of, first of all, Chinese hate, and second of all, basically, they didn't have the idea first. It's not an American company and therefore shouldn't be a part of the American dream, right? It has a lot to do with both racism and with greed, to be plain and simple about it. But we're going to get into more of that later. TikTok has 15 minutes to fight for its life. This article is from CNN. CNN, obviously, has a lean left rating. I honestly think with 3 lean lefts, it should just be labeled as a left rating. Although they have said things in the past more recently that I think that's a lean left more rating is a little bit more justified. They have been trying to take a more centrist approach to things in the last few years, which I don't personally like, but hey, they're doing what they're doing. They have an average factuality rating of high, although the media bias fact check company does give it a mixed factuality rating. It is owned by Warner Media and Warner Bros. Wow, really? CNN's owned by the Warner Bros? Okay, yeah, the more you know. TikTok has 15 minutes to fight for its life. 15 minutes. That's how much time TikTok will have today to dissuade a federal appeals court from supporting a possible US ban of its social media app, which is used by 170 million Americans. Those 15 minutes could well be the most significant of TikTok's US existence. The company is fighting for survival in the face of a law signed by President Joe Biden, whose key provisions could kick in as soon as January. The law Biden signed seeks to ban TikTok on Americans' personal devices unless its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, quickly sells TikTok to someone else, which may effectively end the app as we currently know it. As the deadline nears for a potential ban, TikTok and ByteDance have gone to court, asking for the law to be blocked and declared unconstitutional on First Amendment grounds. TikTok will not get the luxury of a full trial to argue for its continued existence in its current form. That's because the law in question requires any legal challenge to bypass federal district court and go straight to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit within a tight time frame. A 3-judge panel will hear the case and decide, likely in a matter of weeks, whether the law is constitutional. Short arguments set for Monday. On Monday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the companies will make their case in oral arguments. TikTok will have just a few minutes to make an impact, but it won't be alone. A group of TikTok creators, which we just covered, also suing the Biden administration, will go next with 10 minutes to speak, and the Biden administration will wrap it up with its own 25-minute presentation. With each side of the debate allotted roughly a half hour, TikTok and its allies will try to explain why the court should reject the law and prevent it from being enforced. DOJ attorneys will explain why a potential TikTok ban, or forced sale as they will likely put it, a qualified divestiture, is the only way to keep American users safe. Hearing the case will be Chief Judge Sri Srinivasan, an Obama appointee, along with Judge Naomi Rao, who was appointed by former President Donald Trump, and Judge Douglas Ginsburg, a Reagan appointee. The key question facing Monday's panel: is the hypothetical risk of Chinese spying through TikTok enough of a national security threat that it justifies a federal law that may infringe on Americans' constitutional free speech rights? It absolutely is not. It absolutely is not at all. It's not clear when the court could reach a decision on whether to block the legislation, but the law sets out a deadline of January 19 for TikTok, so it's probable the court may rule before then. Fast-tracked through Congress this spring with uncommon speed, the legislation is a U.S. response to fears that TikTok's China ties could allow that country's government to access American users' app data, such as which videos they may have watched, liked, shared, or searched for. Wait, is that... Do you mean the same thing that the United States government does to everybody through American-based, like, through, like, okay. The measure has become a symbol of bipartisan opposition to China, but for TikTok supporters, including some of its most prominent content creators, the law smacks of racism and anti-China hysteria. Sure does. They argue it does little to address other, potentially even more sensitive sources of data freely available on commercial marketplaces. You mean like, how many times has it been? 2, 3? The last 2 or 3 times where United States soldiers went on Discord and just started talking about military secrets just for fun? You mean like that? Yeah, TikTok's a problem though. TikTok's a problem, guys. The outcome of the case won't just determine the fate of TikTok in the United States. It could also have ripple effects for the way courts interpret the First Amendment, which guarantees against the government prohibiting freedom of expression and its relationship to digital speech and online platforms writ large. TikTok argues the potential ban violates the First Amendment because it stifles the ability for its US users to express themselves and to access information, and it alleges the law is unconstitutionally extreme when the government had the other options to address fears about TikTok's links to China. Court filings show that TikTok and U.S. national security officials have hammered out a draft proposal to address the security concerns. That agreement included the ability for the U.S. government to shut down TikTok if it violated the proposal deal. Some of the deal's provisions TikTok had already publicly implemented as part of an initiative called Project Texas, which involves moving U.S. user data onto servers controlled by the American tech giant Oracle and erecting additional organizational barriers between TikTok and ByteDance. But TikTok claims U.S. officials abruptly abandoned the plan with no explanation. The U.S. government has subsequently described the plan in its court filings as inadequate because officials feared it would be hard to detect whether TikTok were violating the agreement. TikTok has also claimed that it is technologically impossible to separate its app from its parent company. For starters, it said in a court filing, the TikTok app depends on software code that's built by ByteDance, and there is no way to simply copy that code to another company with any expectations that it will run. Now, this claim right here, I want to say I don't agree with it, because I'm pretty sure it's fairly easy to copy code and to copy like source and data type stuff over to other devices. I think what it really is ByteDance just doesn't want to sell a company that's like making it millions and billions of dollars. No, they don't want to sell. Like, I don't think it has anything to do with the tech side of things. But I'm not a tech bro, so I could be wrong. If someone knows more than me on that, please leave it in the comment section. For another, the company argues the Chinese government most likely won't allow TikTok's recommendation algorithm to be sold to a non-Chinese company. The recommendation engine is TikTok's secret sauce and what powers its popularity. Without it, the app loses its most distinctive feature. Last year, the Chinese government said it would firmly oppose a potential sale of TikTok from ByteDance. Following new export controls, the country announced that affect the transfer of certain software algorithms. TikTok has portrayed the US law as a sweeping congressional power grab that threatens all Americans' speech rights. Well, yeah. I mean, if they can do this to TikTok, then, as previously mentioned, is, Instagram safe? Is YouTube safe? No. You think they're going to stop here? You think some future politician's not going to cite this as a source for their future case against those sites? I'll get into more of that later. If Congress can do this, the company wrote in its filings, it can circumvent the First Amendment by invoking national security and ordering the publisher of any individual newspaper or website to a cell to avoid being shut down. Finally, TikTok claims the US government has never proven that the Chinese government has exploited US user data to justify the law. Even the statements by individual members of Congress and a congressional committee report merely indicate concern about the hypothetical possibility that TikTok could be misused in the future without citing specific evidence. Even though the platform has operated prominently in the United States since it was first launched in 2017, the company wrote, those speculative concerns fall far short of what is required when First Amendment rights are at stake. Now, that's a lot of language designed to kind of throw doubt on this whole case, right? And that's kind of where you start getting into the more CNN, more like left-leaning side of things. But in this instance, they are correct. If you Google it, if you start looking into it, and we'll cover it a little bit in this video, but no one's found any evidence of this. The US government has argued in its own filings that lawmakers are free to take action, even if all of the threatened harms have not yet broadly materialized or been detected. We must provide safety. And liberals do this a lot too, where they're just willing to give up privacy for safety, which I am staunchly against. But yeah, I hate this. I hate this whole this one long ass sentence. I hate this sentence. The Chinese government has the incentive and the ability to pressure ByteDance to hand over TikTok user data, the Biden administration has said, adding that the information could be useful for intelligence purposes or for manipulating the public through disinformation campaigns. The United States, for its part, also routinely requests user data from social media companies, but there are typically checks and balances on the government, such as laws limiting what intelligence officials can do with data about U.S. citizens, or for domestic law enforcement requires that authorities obtain a court order in exchange for user data. Orders that tech companies can and often do challenge, even if they can't always disclose it. TikTok's parent company and recommendation algorithm are based in China, the Justice Department wrote in a court brief, giving rise to the risk that a foreign adversary will wield TikTok's enormous power to advance its own interests, to the detriment of U.S. national security. Why does this sound so familiar? This defense sounds really familiar. It's almost like the United States government has done this a lot in the past. I'm not sure. Have they? Maybe. The U.S. government has also insisted the law is not a ban, as it technically provides a way for TikTok to avoid one by simply finding a new owner within about 6 months. Again, greed. Just straight up American greed. Independent cybersecurity experts have said that the risk of Chinese spying through TikTok sounds plausible, but remains unproven. Intelligence laws require companies with a presence there to help with that country's intelligence objectives. TikTok does not operate in China, but ByteDance does, meaning it's subject to China's laws. And the Chinese government holds a board seat on ByteDance's local Chinese subsidiary. Right, because Chinese TikTok is completely different from American TikTok. There are certain laws in place that China operates on that the rest of TikTok does not. The question is whether all that amounts to enough influence over ByteDance and TikTok to gain access to US TikTok's user data, in spite of the guardrails promised by Project Texas, which, again, it was abandoned. We know this. Project Texas was abandoned by the government, by liberals. The case has attracted immense attention, prompting friend of the court briefs from more than a dozen US states, the House Select Committee on China that drafted the law, former US national security officials, business and civil rights groups, and a former chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. The law in question plainly raises the issue of political bias and motivation, singling out TikTok because of its foreign ownership, even as other major social media platforms raise similar privacy and content moderation issues, wrote a coalition of digital rights groups in a filing. But former national security officials wrote that TikTok user data, if combined with other information Beijing has collected through hacks and leaks, could be a potential intelligence risk. Again, I will once again refer back to Discord. I'm once again asking you, is it just TikTok? Is it just because it's Chinese? Is it just because it's not an American company? Yeah, weird. The Chinese government wrote the group that includes former National Cyber Director Chris Inglis can exploit this massive trove of sensitive data to power sophisticated artificial intelligence capabilities that can be used to identify Americans for intelligence collection, to conduct in advanced electronics and human intelligence operations, and may even be weaponized to undermine the political and economic stability of the United States. Okay, so we're AI fear-mongering as well, which might actually work to a certain extent with government officials, because a lot of government officials are extremely old and don't understand that AI right now is not AI. It is a giant theft program that is very good at producing slop. Could it be used to compile data and come up with possible answers and things that you wouldn't normally be able to do? Sure. Is that what China is doing? I don't know. And neither does U.S. Intelligence Agency, but hey, here we are talking about it. All right. Our last of the three articles that we got from Ground News is Financial Post. Financial Post, they've only been rated by Media Bias Fact Check, but they do have a lean right rating. They have a mixed factuality rating, same company. They are owned by Postmedia.net, Leon Cooperman, and the Alliance Corporation. Yeah. TikTok heads to court over U.S. law that could lead to a ban on the popular platform. This article is actually written by the Associated Press. Okay, so even a lean right platform like Financial Post is cool with posting stuff from the Associated Press, which means I guess they agree with it. So the U.S. government and TikTok will go head-to-head in federal court on Monday as oral arguments begin in a consequential legal case that will determine if or how a popular social media platform used by nearly half of all Americans will continue to operate in the country. Attorneys for the two sides will appear before a panel of judges at the Federal Courts Appeal Court in Washington. TikTok and its China-based parent company, ByteDance, are challenging a U.S. law that requires them to break ties or face a ban in the U.S. by mid-January. The legal battle is expected to reach the U.S. Supreme Court. The law signed by President Joe Biden in April was a culmination of a years-long saga in Washington over the short-form video sharing app, which the government sees as a national security threat due to its connections to China. Again, we're Chinese fear-mongering over here real hard. But TikTok argues the law runs afoul of the First Amendment, while other opponents claim it mirrors crackdowns sometimes seen in authoritarian countries abroad. It sure does. In court documents submitted over the summer, the Justice Department emphasized the government's two primary concerns. First, TikTok collectors vast swaths of user data, including sensitive information on viewing habits that could fall into the hands of the Chinese government through coercion. Second, the US says the proprietary algorithm that fuels what users see on the app is vulnerable to manipulation by Chinese authorities, who can use it to shape content on the platform in a way that's difficult to detect. This last few sentences sounds like a lot of trust me, bro. I don't have any evidence, but trust me. TikTok has repeatedly said it does not share US user data with the Chinese government, and that concerns the government as raised have never been substantiated. In court documents, attorneys for both TikTok and its parent company have argued that members of Congress sought to punish the platform based on propaganda they perceived to be on TikTok. The companies also claimed divestment if not possible, and that the app would have to shut down by January 19th if the courts don't step in to block the law. So do you guys, some of you guys will get this, some of you won't, but do you remember old YouTube? You could get away with posting pretty much anything on old YouTube. And now TikTok is allowing just about anybody to post about anything. Although they are pretty good about removing very videos that inspire violence and super hateful stuff. A lot of that stuff does get taken down, but I mean TikTok can only do so much. It's a huge site. But can you imagine if the United States government went after YouTube for the same reason? If they're like, hey YouTube, remember all that stuff that happened back then in 2008, 9, somewhere in there? Time is a weird soup. It's the same argument they would use against YouTube. The people who think that, oh, this is just TikTok. No, it's not just TikTok. TikTok is the first stepping stone in the US government trying to take away people's right to freedom of speech, people's right to express themselves how they want to online. If this goes through, it will be abused. I guarantee it. I guarantee you will see some jackass politician in the near future, if this goes through, that will then start to target things like YouTube, things like Instagram, just like dominoes, just bop, 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 bop. Even if divestiture were feasible, TikTok in the United States would still be reduced to a shell of its former self, stripped of the innovative and expressive technology that tailors content to each user, the company said in a legal brief filed in June. It would also become an island, preventing Americans from exchanging views with the global TikTok community. Now, this part of the argument, the fact that it would become an island or whatever, America is unique in that each state has hundreds of different cultures and groups of people from other countries in it. So I don't think America would be as much of an island as they're saying it would be, but it would definitely get cut off. You would stop seeing things from, Palestinians over in Israel. You would stop seeing things from creators over in Africa trying to be like, hey, there's bad shit going on. Which is honestly another thing against the U.S. government. The U.S. government does not want American citizens becoming actually aware of the things going on in other countries, because then we might become aware of what we're doing in other countries. Isn't that fun? Opponents of the law stress a ban would also cause disruption in the world of marketing, retail, and in the lives of many different content creators, some of whom also sued the government in May. TikTok is covering the legal costs for that lawsuit, which the court has consolidated with the company's complaint and another filed on behalf of conservative creators who work with a nonprofit called Based Politics. We'll get into them a little bit later. I don't think I would call them conservative creators. They, from what I read, they're a bit more libertarian than conservative, but we'll see. Though the government's primary reasoning for the law is public, significant portions of its court filings include classified information that has been redacted and hidden from public view. The companies have asked the court to reject the secret filings or appoint a district judge who can ferret through the material, which the government has opposed because they will cause a delay in the case. If admitted into the court, legal experts say those secret filings could make it nearly impossible to know some of the factors that could play a part in the eventual ruling. In one of the redacted statements submitted in a late July, the Justice Department claimed TikTok took direction from the Chinese government about content on its platform without disclosing additional details about when or why those incidents occurred. Casey Blackburn, a senior U.S. intelligence official, wrote in a legal statement that ByteDance and TikTok have taken action in response to Chinese government demands to censor content outside of China. Though the intelligence community had no information that this had happened on the platform operated by TikTok in the US, Blackburn said that there is a risk it may occur. So even on a right-leaning source, that is just quoting Associated Press, because I'm guessing they didn't want to pay their own journalists to do it. You have it here, black and white. Even on the right side of things, they're like, well, actually, the CIA doesn't really have any information on this, and we're just going off of, trust me, bro, it could happen. Trust me, it's fine. In a separate document submitted to court, the DOJ said the U.S. is not required to wait until its foreign adversary takes specific detrimental actions before responding to such a threat. Fear and trust me, bro. Got it. The companies, however, argue the government could have taken a more tailored approach to resolve its concerns. During high-stakes negotiations with the Biden administration more than 2 years ago, TikTok presented the government with a draft 90-page agreement that allows a third party to monitor the platform's algorithm, content moderation practices, and other programming. TikTok says it has spent more than $2 billion to voluntarily implement some of these measures, which includes storing U.S. user data on servers controlled by the tech giant Oracle. But it said a deal was not reached because the government officials essentially walked away from the negotiating table in August 2022. Again, I'm not a tech bro, but I'm pretty sure that if you are the one controlling all the data, like where it's stored, you can easily see whether someone is trying to come in on that data and access and get past your firewalls. Like, the idea that this plan wouldn't work is a falsehood. Because again, this is all just based on Chinese hate, Chinese fear-mongering, and American greed. Just as officials have argued complying with the draft agreement is impossible or would require extensive resources due to the size and the technical complexity of TikTok. Really, justice officials said that. Do justice officials not know that also in Texas they're building another stock market? Are they somehow unaware of this factoid? The Justice Department also said the only thing that would resolve the government's concern is severing the ties between TikTok and ByteDance, given the porous relationship between the Chinese government and Chinese companies. Sure. But some observers have wondered whether such a move would accelerate the so-called decoupling between the US and its strategic rival at a time when other Chinese-founded companies such as Shein and Temu are also making a big splash in the West. Now, I don't know about Shein, but I don't like Temu. Temu is like the worst spammy, like, it's what I hate about shopping in malls, where like you go in the mall and there are those people in the middle who like aggressively try to like, hey, come to my shop, come over here, look at my stuff, and it's like looking at an ad in real life. That's Temu. I don't like Temu. Last week, the Biden administration proposed rules that would crack down on duty-free products being shipped directly from China. For its part, ByteDance has publicly said TikTok is not up for sale, but that has not stopped some investors, including former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and billionaire Frank McCourt, who we'll get into a little later, from announcing bids to purchase the platform. However, even if such a sale would occur, it would most likely be devoid of TikTok's coveted algorithm, leaving a big question mark on whether the platform would be capable of serving up the type of personally tailored videos that users have come to expect. The political alignments on the issue are playing out in unconventional ways. That is true. There is a huge majority of right-wingers, left-wingers, centrists that are telling the US government, hey, like, don't do it. Like, TikTok's great. Don't do it. The law, which passed with bipartisan approval in Congress, had encountered resistance from some progressive and Republican lawmakers who voiced concern about giving the government the power to ban a platform used by 170 million Americans. Former President Donald Trump, who tried to ban TikTok while in office, that's right, he did. Despite all of this, despite all of these posts talking about how Biden's doing this and Biden's trying to ban it and Biden's signing this order, like, Trump also tried to do this. Trump also tried to do this back in his presidency. Where was I? Office is now opposing a ban because that would help its rival Facebook, a platform Trump continues to criticize over his 2020 election loss. Which is funny because most of the stuff I see on Facebook is all pro-Trump now. In court, free speech and social justice groups have submitted amicus briefs in support of TikTok, arguing it restricts the First Amendment rights of users and suppresses the speech of minority communities by disrupting a tool many of them use to advocate for causes online. Some libertarian groups with ties to ByteDance investors Jeff Yass have also filed. I'm sorry, I had to. Have also filed briefs supporting the company. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sometimes my kid brain turns on. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has received the backing of more than 20 Republican attorneys generals, former national security officials, and China-focused human rights groups who are asking the court to uphold the law. Okay, that is the end of the right-leaning article that is using Associated Press, which I always find this interesting when right-leaning sources do this. If you're a right-leaning source and you are just copy-pasting what the Associated Press is writing, it kind of makes it seem like you just agree with what the Associated Press is writing. Hire your own journalists. Like, please. Like, I want to hear your side of things and how you interpret this. Don't just say what the Associated Press is saying and think that's good enough. Like, don't be lazy. Get your own journalists on this, please. All right. Anyway, rant over. So we're gonna dive into base politics a little bit here. And I'm on their about page, and you can go look at their site if you want. But at base politics, we believe content moves culture and politics flows downstream from that. Since 2021, we've been leaning into the trends of influencer marketing and new media to reach audiences with entertaining content that introduces them to the ideas of free market capitalism and individual liberty. And we've also been having a lot of success. Our content has reached millions across multiple social media channels, and it's even led to some policy wins along the way. So welcome. We're just getting started. Email basepolitics at hannah@basepolitics.org. Run by Hannah Cox, Brad Palumbo, and Jack Hunter. And the vibe I kind of get from this site is like very, very libertarian. And there's like a little bit of like right-wing politics in there, but as far as like socially, there's a lot of left-wing politics in here too. So, I mean, if that's your jam, give it a check out. Maybe subscribe to it. I don't know. Depends on you, right? But that's base politics. That's who they were referencing in that article. And then this is the guy that they were referencing in that article as well. Casey Blackburn. This is directly from a .gov source. Mr. Blackburn was recently named Director of the Office of Economic Security Emerging Technologies, or OSET, a new established unit at ODNI designed to increase the IC's understanding of the applications, supply chains, and risks associated with emerging and disruptive technologies. Yeah, emerging and disruptive technologies. As OSET Director, Mr. Blackburn seeks to integrate the IC, non-IC partners such as the Department of Commerce and Industry to enable a consolidated understanding of the trends and comparative advantages in emerging technologies to better inform U.S. policymakers. Previously, in January 2022, he served as the chair of the National Intelligence Management Council, where he oversaw the integration and strategic planning for intelligence collection and analysis across all regions and functions for the intelligence community. Mr. Blackburn is a career intelligence officer, beginning his career in 2003 at the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, where his work as a counterterrorism analyst and expert on the Middle East and South Asia propelled him to the CIA's executive ranks in 2015. Mr. Blackburn has led IC operations, including in CT and financial intelligence, and in 2007 he co-founded the CIA's flagship publication and dissemination portal, the World Intelligence Review, or WIRE. Mr. Blackburn is the recipient of the CIA's Intelligence Medal of Merit, the National Intelligence Exceptional Achievement Medal, and 7 meritorious unit citations. He earned a bachelor's in environmental design and the College of Architecture at Texas A&M University, and a master's in public service administration from the Bush School of Government and Public Service. So this guy does actually know what he's talking about to a certain degree. He is well studied in all of this. Like, I mean, you always have to kind of take what people like him say with a grain of salt because he works directly for the government. So it's not always going to be his Like whenever he's writing something or he's giving his word on something, there's always that thing at the back of his head going, hang on, what's my line? What's the government line I have to toe? So take what he says with a grain of salt, but also realize he does know a lot about all of this. Next, the person that was mentioned in that article was Frank McCourt. Frank H. McCourt Jr., born August 14, 1953, is an American businessman, executive, and philanthropist. As of 2023, he is the executive chairman and former CEO of McCourt Global, owner of the football club Marseille, and founder and executive chairman of international nonprofit Project Liberty, which we're going to dip into here in a second because I wanted to know what Project Liberty was. It sounded interesting. He was the owner and chairman of the Los Angeles Dodgers and Dodger Stadium from 2004 to 2012. In 2004, he purchased a controlling interest in the Dodgers from Fox Entertainment Group, owned by Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation. Prior to purchasing the Dodgers and moving to Los Angeles, McCourt was a Boston real estate developer whose family resided in Brookline, Massachusetts. In 2013, he donated $100 million to establish the McCourt School of Public Policy, the Ninth School of Georgetown University. He made a second $100 million gift to Georgetown University in March 2021 for the express purpose of ensuring that the McCourt School can open its doors more widely and build a pipeline of future public policy leaders that reflect the true diversity of our communities. Okay, all right, sounds like a good guy, maybe. I never trust billionaires, but maybe. In 2016, he purchased French Ligue 1 football club Olympique Marseille from Russian-born billionaire Margarita Louis-Dreyfus. The takeover was completed in August after months of negotiations. In 2021, he founded the nonprofit Project Liberty. The initiative was multiple components, which included the development of the decentralized social networking protocol, the founding of the McCourt Institute with founding academic partners, Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and a network of partners within the Unfinished Network. Okay. In 2023, he transitioned from CEO of McCourt Global to executive chairman and announced Shiharazadeh Samsar Debosan, former Political Europe CEO, as McCourt Global CEO. In 2024, he announced plans to build a consortium to buy the U.S. arm of TikTok. Okay, we're not going to read the rest of that. If you want, you can look them up for yourself. But I did want to come home and look at Project Liberty. Basically, Project Liberty is the... I'll just read the about. Project Liberty is stitching together an ecosystem of technologists, academics, policymakers, and citizens committed to building a people-powered internet, where the data is ours to manage, the platforms are ours to govern, and the power is ours to reclaim. Now, I don't know how much I trust this. You would have to do a little bit more digging into Project Liberty yourself, but potentially a good thing. Potentially. My story isn't about Project Liberty today, so we're not going to dive into it, but I encourage you to. And then the last thing. Jeffrey S. Yass is an American billionaire businessman, according to Forbes. Yass has a net worth of $27.6 billion in 2024 and is the richest man in Pennsylvania. He is a registered libertarian who gives money to conservative super PACs, including Club for Growth Action and the Protect Freedom Political Action Community. He and his wife, Janine Yass, are supporters of school choice, a cause to which they have donated tens of millions of dollars. So I'm going to tell you right now, this guy is not a libertarian. This guy is a conservative in libertarian clothing, actively trying to get libertarians to essentially vote Republican. This guy is the kind of guy who gives libertarians a bad name. There's a whole thing that comes with this. There's a whole, Republicans essentially made this big investment move into the Libertarian Party, where they attempted to essentially, co-own it, take it over, and they failed. The person that the Libertarian Party voted for was definitely not their guy, and he is part of that group. But that's all I feel like covering for Jeffrey Yass. You can look into him more if you want, but as a person, this man kind of disgusts me. Because when it says he's all about school choice, he's talking about your tax dollars going to school vouchers so that kids can be religiously indoctrinated at private schools. That kind of bullshit. That's what he's for. But that is the end of a very, very long story. Yeah. This is probably going to be the longest video I think I've ever made, and it's going to take super long to edit too. But I think it's worth it. I think doing, these long form videos on Monday and giving you something to watch, something to get interested in, something to go and dig into yourself, I think that's important. But yeah, this has been Zach with Let's Talk About Us, and I hope that you have a good Monday. I hope that the beginning of this week is not as horrible as most Mondays usually are. But yeah, this has been Zach with Let's Talk About Us. I'll see you tomorrow.